Hello, everybody. Each week, we interview proven leaders to learn from their experiences and share their stories with our listeners. Our mission is to promote the accomplishments of our guests, share experiences from their current roles and products and services that they offer with their existing companies, share success stories from those experiences, and then translate that into highlights or strategies to share with job seekers and advice to talent looking to advance their careers. Today's guest is an accomplished marketing executive from the Cleveland area. She has been running her own business, consulting business for the last 5 years, focused on marketing strategy. I've had the pleasure of collaborating with her a few times. I consider her a mentor of mine. I'm very happy to have her with us today. I'm pleased to welcome Sally Schriner, president of Schriner Growth Partners.
Thank you.
Sally, welcome.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here, Ron. Always good to see you.
Yeah, you too. You too. I appreciate your time today. I know you're very busy. Can you add to my very brief introduction of you and tell our listeners about yourself and your background and not only what you're doing today, but how you got there and
Sure.
and talk about your career evolution.
Yeah. Sure. So I own my own company, as you mentioned, and Schriner Growth Partners focuses on marketing strategy. And what I do is really help companies that don't have marketing leadership in place in-house, but could benefit from having marketing leadership in support. So usually those companies are going through some kind of inflection point where they may have had a recent investment, whether that's from venture capital or whether that's from private equity investment, or there's another inflection point in the market where their marketing needs are changing, their sales is changing. This past year, obviously a ton changed with no in-person meetings. So a lot of sales strategies were really adjusting to more digital strategies. So the most clients I work with are about, $10 to $50 million in business and have grown those to be substantial businesses without a marketing leader. And I come in and help them figure out how they could add that to their team and act as the CMO, finding resources if they don't have them internally, and then bringing those resources to execute on our plans. So, what I always say is it's a blessing to work with companies that have grown up without marketing, because we know they have a great product when they get to that $50 million without a significant marketing. And then it just gives a lot of ammunition for a marketer to have a great product to then push out and keep growing. So career progression, how I got there, I worked for a family-owned business. My first job that was a small family-owned business that went public while I was there. So that was a fun experience. Then I came to Cleveland to work for a publicly traded company that was family controlled and then went private. So that was a different experience. And in between that, I had gone to graduate school at Northwestern. And then 7 years ago, I left corporate and went to the startup world here in Cleveland, and just was really interested in helping smaller businesses make impact. And a lot of that had to do with, just kind of mission of job development here and economic development in Northeast Ohio, to ensure that not just big companies were growing, but also little companies had opportunity to grow, that then would have opportunity to hire, that then, continue to sustain Cleveland as an economic player. So that's kind of where the heart of it all came from. And here we are 5 years later. I've worked with probably 40 companies in and out of Cleveland and across industries and across B2B and B2C.
But could you share a couple case studies or examples of highlights, from that career that kind of stick out in your mind?
Sure. Well, so I can talk about a few. One of my first clients, it's a great sort of startup ownership story that they'd been in business for a few years, software company, about 10, 12 people. And the CEO brought me on board to really help get sales beyond him. He was really the sales leader. And, coming in and really helping understand a process, thinking about that process, thinking about other ways measurement and how we could measure trade show attendance, their investments that they were making that they may not have said was a marketing investment or a sales investment, and starting to put some process in place to be able to track leads that they were getting, and ultimately, into sales as well, and putting an ROI against that. And I use that as an example because that owner, CEO, head of sales, head of operations, everything that he was playing, was really open to working and, really responded to the help in such a positive way, and had a real goal in mind for why he wanted to grow, which was, seeing retirement on the horizon and wanting to build his business into what would be a valuable business for sale. And he sold the business, and so that achieved his goal a few years later. And I ran into him at a restaurant before all of the shutdown happened, and to see the smile on his face, and his wife too, who worked in the business with him, and they said, Sally, we couldn't have done this without you. Like it was. I wasn't with them through, the sale, but at the beginning, just kind of getting that foundation started really did help. And, that's why I do this, is impact. One of my now clients, and I've had a couple of these that I really have done longer term engagements with, which has been, over a year. I've been supporting them as their CMO, and we're going through, major updates to their brand identity and, again, foundational elements. But the biggest highlight, we kind of started last year checking boxes, right? Where you're like, okay, this is our scope, and we're just checking off our list of what we're doing in our scope. And it was very transactional. A new CEO came in, and that new CEO made me a member of the team. And it went from being, a transactional scope relationship to really being involved in the team and team calls, leadership calls. And it transformed everything, right? It just, I'm extremely invested in how the company's doing. Employees, my peers that are there, my kids while they were home doing school here, have gotten to know them on video. They know my colleagues there, and it just has been a unique situation that you get an opportunity to be part of a team, even when you're, alone by yourself, and be invested in their success, even though you don't have anything, 401k or stock or, bonus or anything else. Yep. So that's been really fun too. One others I can mention, I just think about and it kind of ties into, hiring and talent and all those sorts of things too. But because I think each one of these is a common theme, which is the people, right, that I've worked with. And so, I'd say a favorite client of mine was one that, and we still have, great relationship with each other, and we'll meet up at some point for a beer again when we can. But, kind of went into the relationship where, didn't know exactly what help was needed, right? It was like, come in and explore what help I need. And we have some internal resources, so figure out what they're doing, but I have a vision, right? He really had a vision. And in process of looking at where they were today and where the vision was, and that's big gap between, and the main goal, having a goal, he had a goal in mind, which was raising the profile of the firm. I got pushed and challenged in ways that, sometimes can be really hard, right? And it is, get out of the comfort zone. Like at this point, this was my first HubSpot integration. I had never worked in HubSpot before. And, I was like sending out, I'm like chief marketing officer, right? But I'm sending out emails. And I was like, do you really want me to send out emails? He's like, yes, I want you to send out emails. I want you to post to my social because you're doing it better than anybody else is doing it here. And really pushing me to learn more than I probably could have if I, wanted to bring somebody else in who could have done that. And so, as frustrating as it could be at times, it really was valuable for me too, to get fully invested in how we were executing. So.
Well, that's an excellent transition, and I plan to touch on that. I'll just say, getting your hands dirty a little bit in my next set of questions.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest reasons I was excited for you, and you mentioned it a little bit, was ranging from corporate experience to startup experience to consumer products and software as a service, consulting, large companies, small companies. You've been around a lot of talent. You've hired a lot of talent. You've seen lots of different structures for how to build teams. I want to transition on the talent part and the what's near and dear to my heart, obviously. I guess first for students in college or soon to be grads or entry level, kind of that range of experience. What would be your set of suggestions / observations about, the current market and how to approach their next steps and entry into the world, into the work world?
So I entered the workforce many, many years ago. So a lot has changed since then. Old-fashioned networking is the same and different, right? I had somewhere, as my mom is going through, old bedrooms and stuff, I got a box of things that included a list of paper list of people that, my dad suggested that maybe I'd want to contact when I got out of college for a job. And I wrote cover letters and mailed, resumes to those people and other people. So it's very different than today, which actually, in some ways it's the same though, really, networking, right? And things like Zoom coffees and other ways that you can come in contact with people certainly are I'm going to say easier. It's still a hard process, but easier. So I'm going to tell a story too, which is, so number one advice I would say is, and I've seen resumes of kids that are coming out of college now. My neighbor, a couple doors down, he's a junior in college and his resume is amazing, right?
Yep,
He's had experience with internships and even during school internships. And so, my resume I worked at Dairy Queen, right? Like that's what I did before I got out of college. Well, I had one internship with Merrill Lynch, but other than that, I worked at Dairy Queen. And so, but I want to tell a story about Dairy Queen because I don't think it matters what you're doing. I think you need to find something that you really like to do and do that. And that might be, helping out a charity with something. It could be helping out a church, other types of things, but something that you can get access to and do. And the reason why I'm going to tell about Dairy Queen is because that's how I got my first real job. So I worked at Dairy Queen for high school and 2 years in college and 3 years in college. And I told a story at my first job interview about, literally I walked in this, my resume was, a summer at Merrill Lynch and 4 years at Dairy Queen. And, babysitting here and there, but I didn't make up that I was, some Schriner or Babcock at that point, babysitting service or anything like that. And that's what it is. I told a story as my future boss asked me, so what was it that you liked about Dairy Queen? And so I told a story about when every day, every afternoon, there was a man who worked at the paper next door and he would come in for a medium chocolate cone. And he came in with exact change every single day, $1.20. And he would walk in the back of the door, and some days the Little League team was there. And there, when Little League would come in, there's 30 kids who are there getting ice cream at the same time. So there's a line. And I would see him walk in, and instead of him walking back out and coming later, I would flag him forward, make his chocolate cone, and hand it to him.
Oh.
And she just said, "Why did you do that?" And I said, "Because he's my loyal customer, right? Like I gotta serve him in a way I knew how I could. Even if he didn't have the $1.20 change, I knew he was going to come back with the $1.20 the next day."
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that, ability to kind of segment your customers, she loved, and she was like, "You're hired." So if you think about, even the smallest experiences that you may have, whether it's volunteering to do something in your sorority, in a on-campus club, in a, charitable, like dance marathon. I was something at Penn State on, dance marathon committee. You get leadership opportunities in places you may not think are this, star internship opportunity. But it's making sure you take that opportunity and finding, again, a team you're working with, people who give you opportunities to learn, and something a nugget you can take out of it and talk about.
Yep. That's a great example. I wish ice cream still cost $1.20 though, but it not so much anymore. Right. Your experience with, as a hiring manager, what advice would you give individuals to use to differentiate themselves in the interviewing process?
So here's what I'll say is, like, you can tell people who don't care. And so you should be applying for jobs you really care about. And the way that I have seen that it's really effective is somebody who takes the time to research and to understand the company, right, before they're going in for their first interview. If you are just showing up, you're not going to get the job. That's one piece. But I do think that showing that you've taken a look at their website, at their social media, you've signed up for their email newsletter maybe, and you're getting copies of that, or you pretend to be a prospect and see what happens when you fill out the form on the website, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There's a huge difference in conversations I have with people. And so I should mention, sometimes I hire my replacements at my client companies, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm hiring VP of marketings and directors of marketings too. So in that process, I have a conversation where I want to, as I've said, I'm invested in these companies emotionally to make sure they're successful. I want to have somebody going into that spot who's going to be successful there. And again, I could see people that don't have the passion for the business and they haven't done their research. They're not going to get the job. And I don't want to say that it's easy to do that, but it's easy to do some of it, to really put your mindset in. I'm going to become a, director of marketing, manager of marketing, whatever it is. What are the questions you'd want to know walking in day one, right? Who's my customer? Can I see how I'm, my messaging platform? What are the tools I have available to me? What's happening today? I think one of the other questions that I ask people is, like, what's your goal, right? How am I going to be measured? What's my goal? And even seeing that, is it a realistic goal that you should sign up for? Or that, how does that manager, potential future manager, that's my other piece is, you're also interviewing them on what it will be like to work there. So don't forget about that too. So be prepared, but also know what you need to be successful. So I had somebody who told me that, even this in the client work, like, I want you to increase my website traffic by 2,000%. And I was like, okay, great. Well, what are you today? And what, over what time frame, and what's the investment you're willing to make, right? Or is this a wish, right? Are we just wishing? And I didn't feel like I could be successful at that time without really knowing the answers to those questions up front.
Marketing, what new, technologies or focus areas are you seeing, that are kind of the hot areas in marketing?
Direct mail campaigns was how we were doing direct mail and telemarketing. And it was over periods of 6 months that we were measuring our results and figuring out our updated strategies to roll out the next 6 months, right? Campaigns, right? Still some media campaigns you're seeing. It's the time cycle has shortened everything, and so much can be tracked. And I tell business owners, you should be insisting that your agencies or, any internal staff, everything, that you have ways of measuring the impact that you're making. So I think data is becoming and tools that support. Yep. I'm not saying you have to go out and go crazy with with that, but there has to be a spreadsheet at the least where somebody on the team is watching what's going on and knows where are your leads coming from, how are those leads going through the pipeline, which ones are valuable, which ones are not, and measuring that back to an ROI. It takes time, and it's like, I will say, I manually am doing this right now for a client because we just don't have any other way. Yep. So I go through all of our Google ad leads, and I export a spreadsheet of them each month, and I go into our tool where we're quoting, and I tie back the value of each of the quotes for each one of the leads, total up, compare it to my ad spend, and determine the ROI. And I'm presenting that to the board. But that's what we have to do. If I'm going to spend money and I want to spend more, I'm going to bring that back to the CFO and say, here's my return on investment, give me more. And I know you and I have talked about this before, the whole like B2B, B2C, agency, non-agency. I feel like all those lines are blurred. And I had a really good mentor, still friend, mentor of mine when I was convinced I was only B2C. And I was interviewing for my first B2B SaaS, it was a SaaS position. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Right? Like how? And he just said, Sally, the principles are the same. The marketing principles are the same.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. The tactics might be different because you might be doing some trade shows or webinars or, other things. You may need some additional sales materials. You may be right. Like tactics may be different, but it's all the same. So I think that's happening even more. That same thing, agencies, you may have more in-house people. You're gonna have this combination. It's not one or the other anymore. And I think I think that'll continue as digital becomes something that everybody has to have, right? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just chomping at the bit to comment. Both you hit two things that hit home for me too. One, clearly data. It's all over the place. And if you're going to go into marketing, you have to, I'm telling everyone I talk to in college, study analytics, take some data course, whatever. I'm telling my son in high school, you can't avoid it. Second, and it's so funny, I'm starting to loathe the term digital marketing because I think at one time it was a thing. I believe it's marketing. It's, and call it performance marketing, call it integrated marketing, call it whatever you want. It's still marketing. And it's now all the same. There's no traditional, there is no digital, it's marketing. So I am glad I don't think that's exactly what you said, but I think it's pretty close. So I don't know. I just appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. And, really working with advice again to young and not so young people too. Cause I see this all the time. Like people forget the fundamentals, right? Even business owners, when you start a business, you're like laser focused into who's my customer and what am I going to do and how am I going to talk to them? And then, time goes by. And I saw this in my corporate life, like you're not as in touch with your customers anymore as you had been at the very beginning of starting that business. And making sure that you stay in touch with the customer and those fundamental questions of who are we serving? What do we do better than anyone else? And, how are we delivering that? How are we reaching them? Just taking that lens as a young person, and making sure that you keep, again, I'd say like there could be your little project that you had in high school or college, or, there could be little things that you can do that you can show that how to think about that on an ongoing basis, how to reach a customer with a message across platforms, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to follow up with you in a couple of weeks and see how many people have reached out to take the hands-on data sourcing off your hands here for your current role and are applying for internships with you.
That's right. I know. I thought about that. Should I have an intern? Nah. You know what? it's good to see, like, really, I see what people are asking in these lead submissions. And it makes me a better senior leader too, when I know, with the sales leader, I can say, so there were, 60 leads we had come in this month, and you guys had about 12 of them that went through the pipeline, but it looked like 40 more were pretty good. Gives me more ammunition to be able to be a better partner and leader, and ultimately push the business forward, right? Accountable, make sure everybody's accountable.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, Sally, appreciate your time. I know you're really busy, and I can't wait.
Never too busy for you, right?
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll include a link to your profile in my notes when I publish this, and I'm sure you'll get people reaching out to you. But again, appreciate your time. Good luck with everything, and be in touch soon.
Hope to see you soon. All right.
Thank you, Sally.